Welcome to Take It from the Iron Woman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Iron Woman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Iron Woman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. Take It from the Iron Woman, only special guest with Nanci France, modern Renaissance painter. It's about figurative storytelling. She says, as a painter, my greatest desire is to express the human condition of strong women from past myth, poems, and classic tales, using contemporary concepts and subject. Thank you so much, Nanci. We love to hear your story, your beginnings, and hearing from your successes.
When I was about 5 years old, I remember watching a film with Elvis Presley, and I said to my mom, Mommy, I know what I want to be when I grow up. And she goes, who? And I go, I want to be him. And his name was Deke Rivers. The name of the movie was Loving You. And I said, I want to be Deke Rivers. She goes, you mean Elvis Presley? What do you mean you want to be him? I said, I want to do what he does. She goes, do you want to be an actress? Oh, no, you don't want to be an actress. I go, yes, I do. Yes, I do. I want to be famous. I want to be an actress and I want to be a dancer. And every time Fred Astaire would come on, and my biological dad would tell me, he said, your grandmother would have to stop you. You were always turning the knobs on the TV. You're always very quick. You learned very quick, but you're always copying things. So whenever I saw dance, ballet, any sort of acrobats and acting, I loved it so much. But they were so not into me doing that she would constantly say, change the subject, stop being crazy. Fast forward. So when I was 9, I had to be the only kid that loved English and writing stories. Every Friday we would have a spelling, and I would always get 100 on my spelling test or my Italian test. And we had to come up with a composition, a story. By the time I got home, I had a story. And my mom would say to me, how did you think of this? Just having always an imagination, reading. I was constantly reading about mythology. Don't ask me why. The encyclopedia. I would go in there, read. So I would go into the library and stack a lot of plays. I would stand in there until they closed, reading the script of the plays to see which actress I wanted to be. I would memorize all the lines. I have a photographic memory, so I could remember things very easily. I would come out, make a costume for myself, come out into my living room, bow like I had an audience and people were clapping. And I would make believe I had this guy and I was doing a dialogue with him as if I was on stage. So for many years, like I struggled with that. In high school, my elective was drama. And my teacher said, you're a natural at it. He said, you should go into theater. My parents were so negative about it. They said, oh, you're so good in gymnastics. I said that I got into gymnastics because you wouldn't let me go into theater or dance. So here I was all through school. I was a competitive gymnast. I got medals. I had to prove to myself I could do something well. And so I have a very competitive nature. I got into Brooklyn College. I had a scholarship to LIU. And I became the best, win medals. I was in the state finals and all that. Did it for 7 years. When you hit 22, you can't do it anymore. Here's what happened. I was always painting and drawing. Since I was a kid, I was always drawing portraits and doing illustration stuff. I said to my mom, okay, I want to be a famous actress and dancer. If I can't do that, I want to be a famous painter. Those are the only 3 things. Here I am skipping around job to job, making my parents happy that I was normal. And I was absolutely miserable. I got so depressed. I went onto Wall Street. I worked in gold and silver by the ring, real switch of everything. I couldn't stand it. I mean, I liked Wall Street. It was fun. It was exciting. But I knew it wasn't who I was. There was no more gymnastics. I used to go into dance competitions, ballroom dance and all that. But I kept drawing all the time. Somehow in my mid-20s, I got so depressed, I started to take drugs, cocaine. So out of depression, they tell you can't be something. Nobody supports you. You're all by yourself. They tell you you're crazy for doing what you'd like to do. You have to have talent. But I do have talent. They didn't believe me. So for a long time, I was really into cocaine. And at one point, I remember being in my late 20s and knowing that I wasn't who I was supposed to be. Looking in the mirror and say, I hate you. I hope you die. Like just that, depressed, because it really was in me to be an artist. And I just wasn't supported. Did they know that they were doing that? No, I hid it really well. But I would say, but why can't I do that? And I would always, when they would leave, cry my eyes out. I don't understand why they won't let me be what I want to be. This is what I really want. Why do they think I'm crazy? They keep telling me I can't. Yes, I can. Somehow I had this self-preservation that whatever I wanted to do, I can be good at because I was very focused. And so a few years went by. I got into American Express travel, got into skiing, went all over, flew all over the world, went on 7 vacations in 1 year. It was a lot of fun. I got to meet a lot of people. I was always in Europe. I love Europe. At one point I said, I'm running away from myself. I was still taking acting classes, kickboxing. I had a horse. I used to ride. I was doing everything to get that endorphin release of what art does for you, that self-fulfillment. And when I was about 36 years old, I talked to a friend of mine. He said, why don't you go to school for art? You're always doodling and sketching and doing weeping willow trees that I put on my refrigerator. I don't know. Do you think at this age I could do that? It's going to be really hard to go to school. He said, it is very hard. I'm doing it. He said, but the company will pay for 2 classes and you can try it out if you switch to the graphic design department. I walked into School of Visual Arts. My friend said, oh, go to that school at Parsons. SVA was more up my alley. I walked in there and I said to them, my company will pay for 2 classes and I'd like to get a bachelor's degree. I have 36 credits from Brooklyn College. How do I do that? And they said, well, portfolio reviews in January. And I said, well, how do I get one? They said, did you ever take drawing classes? I said, no, but I have doodles in my sketchbook.
Yeah.
Work? And they go, no, you got to have drawings from life and all this stuff. They recommended 2 classes. And the first class I took, I'm actually in touch with him now, and he's getting me into the National Arts Club. He's sponsoring me. Glenn Hansen, an amazing painter. He does architectural buildings, but the cornices of New York, the clocks of New York, very hyper-realistic. He was my first teacher. And he says to me to this day, he goes, you were so tenacious. You weren't giving up. And he said to me, you'll get really good one day. And I said, really? You really think so? He said, did I tell you? He said, you don't quit. He said, you were the best student I ever had because you paid attention. For years, I switched over to computer animation. I was 3D animation for film and special effects. I had to do video, audio, all this stuff we have to do today for social media. That was my major. I'm very good at doing the Instagram reels, the IGTV, being in front of the camera.
Yeah.
I want to be an actress. Of course, I'm going to be good at
Well, now with your time, it seems like you, in a way, you did everything backwards. Now you can just do what you want. You're amazing. For the listeners, follow her on Instagram, on Facebook, and you just see all the amazing stuff that's happening. I think I met you maybe 10 years ago.
Maybe longer. I moved here to Asbury Park in 2009. I lived on the Upper West Side. I think when you first met, moved from Brooklyn. I'm originally from Brooklyn. Yeah. So I lived on the Upper West Side. I met you through Gloria because we would always do the women's night. And I think I was...
You were at Bloomingdale's. That's how I met you.
Bloomingdale's, Bergdorf. I was a makeup artist for Laura Mercier. Gave up the teaching job at art and design. Everybody hated me. No more benefits or anything. You always were a nut. You're going to follow this art career. You're going to be a painter. The same negative thing. When I moved into the city, I was far away from that. And I said, how do I figure this out? Well, makeup will pay me $230 a day. And it's like painting a portrait. And I got the best gig at Bergdorf. You didn't have to stand in the aisle and pull people into a chair and try to sell them. But all of those skills that I learned along the way, and then finally getting through to school, owing out $55,000 when I was 40 years old, that took cojones. And I'm still paying it off, by the way. I still owe about $20,000. It just took a lot of thinking of strategy. What do you really want to be? What do you really want to do? I didn't do it for so long. I was told I couldn't. That now that it was in my hands and I had the reins of the horse, I'm going to drive that horse to be what I want to be on my path, the way I see it, at all costs. Sometimes I get depressed. Sometimes back in the day, if I didn't get into a show, did I want to quit? No, I'm not a quitter. I said, no, I'm going to try harder. I'm going to do better next time. And when you met me, I was still studying. That was in 2006, 2007. Guy named Michael Grimaldi, Dan Thompson, Paul W. McCormack. And my first teacher, John Murray, would always tell me, give up everything and just paint. So I would say that those guys were really responsible for my character and building up, I guess, my tenaciousness, so to speak, to never give up. I would say it's not until, like, I was always getting into shows and stuff, but all of a sudden in the past 2 years, especially the past year, I hit my stride. Now I got into this. I never tried to get into Spain, this ModPortrait, one of the most prestigious shows in the world. It's international. Got in with a painting of a musician down here because I promote other women artists, men too, but mostly women. I always want to empower them. Got into that. And then I did this thing based on Dante's Inferno, a double figurative portrait called Whatever Tomorrow Brings. And it's the storytelling, the writing that I used to do is coming out in my paintings, the acting, the character. I pick the costume. I have the story. Sometimes I write like a poem for it. And then I create it. I do all the photography. I do all the Photoshop, one-stop shop, but it's my film. I look at it that I did a still frame, like a cinematographer, except I'm painting. That's the way I see my art. And I think this year I just got into ModPortrait again. I just got into the imaginative realism show, the main show. Never tried. I'll be doing that in Reading, Pennsylvania with all the magical realism. Because that's the others. I love that sort of element because I love poetry.
What I learned from the photography professor that I take, he says, if you are good or good, if you're doing one thing like writing, then photography or painting comes actually easier. It's all combined. It's all combined.
It's a transfer of information. Like if you, I think because I wrote from very young and I was a good short story writer. Mm-hmm. And then I wrote poetry in my 20s, never took a class, but just recently I listened to what you need. What are the couplings? What is a sonnet? What is the difference between all of them? And I always read, but I didn't know what the difference was because I didn't study it. I did creative writing with plays and how does it refer to society today? And in my painting, I actually do that. I would like to give credit to a guy named Bob Milgram. He passed away. I took Arthurian literature. I love all the classical literature and plays. And this guy, Lovetts, was a playwright, and he would always have us read a play. And then he said, if that character was alive today, if Nora from Ibsen House, right, from Ibsen's Dollhouse was alive today, what would she say? And I would be raising my hand. None of the other kids did it. Okay, Miss France, what? I said, I am so annoyed that her husband treated her that way. He said, she's getting really passionate. And it really happens to me. And I think that sort of passion comes out in my painting. When I was doing just portrait commissions because I had to, I didn't really like doing them. I like to do my own painting. I like to paint. I like to write my own song. It's much harder, but I seem to have gotten more success doing that than getting my own portrait commissions. I got my own portrait commissions, but I don't even want to post those.
Keep it up, and we will follow you. And we have all the information in the show notes. Thank you so much for having us in your studio. What a wonderful discussion to have with Nanci. We can talk forever. Thank you so much. Take it from the Iron Woman. We have episodes every Monday, every Wednesday. Chime in. There's something for everybody. And Take It from the Iron Woman is also a book. Download it or get the real book and write a review. Thank you so much for your support.